What's going on, everybody? It's your man with the plan, ShaneMan20, and if you'll look behind me, it's finally happening. We are going to put a cold air intake on this truck. So before we go on ahead and walk through the installation process of this cold air intake system, I kind of want to tell you what system I chose and why I ended up choosing it. Also, one thing is I really want to give a huge shout out to Auto Anything. Those guys helped me out big time. Like I said in my last video, they helped me out big time with getting this, as well as my tuner that I've got, which I'll show you guys in the next video. But again, huge thanks to Auto Anything for helping me get this and the tuner. So the cold air intake that I decided to choose, if it's not obvious, is the AFE Momentum GT intake. More specifically, the Pro Dry S as opposed to the Pro 5R. Now the difference between the two, it's kind of obvious. Pro 5R is an oiled filter, and the Pro Dry S is a dry filter, as the name indicates. Now I went with the Pro Dry S, and I've kind of felt pretty strongly about that. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. Everybody says something differently. A lot of people say an oiled filter is the better way to go because you can get more airflow out of it. Well, the problem with that is that sometimes oil gets on the mass airflow sensor, it covers the throttle body, gets everything messy inside. It's just not a good time. Now, I could definitely see that if you maybe oil it a little too heavy, but in this case, most of them, it's generally a light coating, so even stock, it probably shouldn't be too bad. Whereas everybody else has been going for a high flowing dry filter, and the pros to a dry filter are obviously you don't have to worry about oil getting everywhere because it's not oiled, it's a dry filter, that's all there is to it. But it doesn't flow as good as an oiled filter, as some do claim, and I'm sure that is definitely the case. But for me, seeing as how this is my daily driver, I like the benefit of knowing that I won't run into any issues. So that's kind of why I chose to go with the Pro Dry S instead of the Pro 5R. Now, the reason that I chose AFE over people like Volant or Air Raid or K&N or any of those guys really. Now, to explain to you guys the reasons why I chose AFE over the rest of the competition like Volant or Air Raid, K&N, or even Cold Air Inductions for that matter, the biggest reasons were they were pretty similar power gains, and there was actually 3 different intakes I was looking at. This one, Volant, and Cold Air Inductions, which Cold Air Inductions really didn't come in until I had seen a video by none other than StreetSpeed717. I'm a huge subscriber to him, and I seen that video and I added that to my list of cold air intakes that I was looking at. But upon further research, I noticed they only include oiled filters, and I was still pretty hesitant about using an oiled filter. So again, like I said, oiled filters can tend to mess things up only if you put a little bit too much oil on it. Or there is too much oil rather. And of course, like I said, the other selection was Volant. Now the reason I kind of went with this against Volant is I was checking out some information on Black Bear Tuning Solutions website. They actually did a test on a bunch of different cold air intakes, including the AFE and the Volant cold air intakes, and the results were quite a bit surprising. Now, the Volant cold air intake actually beat the AFE cold air intake by 2 or 3 horsepower, but was actually down in torque compared to the AFE. And upon further research into that same document, I also noticed that the Volant intake required a little bit more tuning because they were finding that they were getting a little bit of spark knock or knock retard from the Volant cold air intake, as opposed to this, which they got none at all. Very minimal tuning, if any at all, and they still got the same relatively close power gains compared to the Volant. Also, the other reason that I chose AFE as opposed to the rest of the competition was actually because of these two things right here. This coupler right here is actually the coupler for the 5.3, which is what we're going to put on today. And this one right here is for the 6.2 liter, which we will actually end up using later on, since we're swapping out the stock intake for the L86 or the 6.2 liter intake and throttle body. So when you go to buy your kit from AFE, you just choose which intake system you want, either the Pro 5R or the Pro Dry S, and no matter what kit you get, you will get both of these connectors in the kit. So now that I'm kind of done talking, let's just go on ahead and start the installation process, and I'll walk you guys through that as best as I can. But first, let's go over all the tools you're going to need. You are going to need an 8mm nut drive. You're going to need a 10mm, which I'm surprised I still have this. You're going to need a Torx 20 and a Torx 15 set of screws, and it says you could use some pliers. I really don't know where I'm going to use them at, but I've got them out here anyways. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so to start off this installation, we need to disconnect the mass airflow sensor, and in order to do that, we've got to pull up on this tab, push in on the button, and it should disconnect. And also we need to pull this all out right here. This is part of the connection for the mass airflow sensor. You need to pull that right out of that tab, and you should be good to go. So now that we've got it disconnected, we're just going to set everything off to the side here. And now that we've got it disconnected, we're going to go on ahead and remove all these clamps, the one right here to the air box, and then we're going to disconnect the one over here on the throttle body. So let's get to it. And just in case you need to know, this is the bolt that you're going to have to go for. You can also use a flathead screwdriver. So now that we've got those loosened up, we've got this loosened up, I've gotten this one loosened and pulled out, I'm going to go on ahead and remove these things right here, and there's also one on the other side. I'm going to go on ahead and remove these from the box, and it's really simple. You just push that down and it should come right out. And as you can see, we've got it removed, so we're just going to take this and move this out of the way. Along with moving the intake tube out of the way, we're going to go on ahead and remove these from the engine as well, which you do the same thing. You just pull up, comes right off. And do the same thing for the other side. So with that much out of the way, we're going to go on ahead and remove this air box. Now in the instructions, they're not pretty clear on how you take that out exactly, but what I'm going to go on ahead and do is loosen up these 4 bolts that are right here. I don't know if you can see, this red wire is an extra add-on that I had for this vehicle, so don't worry about that. That's not going to be a part of your vehicle, but we're going to go on ahead and remove all of those and try to get all of that removed out. And that's just going to take the top off of this so that we can access the filter and access the bottom of the stock air box, so that way we can get it out much easier. Alright, we're going to take out this stock filter and just take a look and see how bad it is. Surprisingly, it's kind of dirty up here, and it's, compared to the rest of it, it's not too bad, but it has gotten dirty over 12,000 miles, so not bad. Alright guys, so as you can see, I have everything taken out of the truck. I ended up assembling everything back together with the filter, no big deal. Still have to take the mass airflow sensor out, but I did want to at least show you guys one thing. Right here is a plug that goes right here. This is what you need to take out, and you need to take this and install it into the bottom of your new air box, which would be right there. And don't forget to have your friendly neighborhood cat help you out with this install. Alright guys, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to unbox our filter here, as you can see. So as you can see, we've got our filter, and it also comes with a band clamp down here at the bottom. We're going to go on ahead and install that into the new air box. So like so. Trying to do this all with one hand. I'm going to slide that in. Should be good to go. As you can see, slips on like so, and there's a big band clamp that's in your parts right here that you're going to have to put around that. So we're going to go on ahead and put that on. Alright, so one thing that I did come across with these band clamps, at least this one, is that a 10mm does not fit it. However, an 11mm socket does. So I'm going to use that to loosen this up, because the problem right now is it's not loose enough to fit around this. So I'm going to loosen that up and try and get this on here. Alright guys, the next thing to do after that is to install this around this. We need to take our weather stripping, put it all around this, and this should actually be all correctly fitted. No need to cut or trim at all. Should just be able to put that on there real quick, and yeah. Alright, so apparently I was wrong. You do actually need to trim it, so I've got a pair of scissors here. Anything will really work, just something sharp to cut that with, and we'll go on ahead and cut that excess off and get it looking nice. Alright guys, so we got it cut. As you can see, it's nice, flush, feels really good. Let's go on ahead and put this in the truck. Alright, we got it in there. Put this clamp back on there. And we're ready to move on to the next step. Alright, just so you remember, if you remember that little rubber grommet that we actually pulled off and then put in the new intake, what you have to do is there's a little slot, and I wish I would have recorded it. Fortunately I didn't. But you got to slip that into the little groove and then push it back. Should be good to go. Also, one other thing we ought to do is kind of take a look around, make sure everything looks in tip-top shape. Belts look alright. Probably could use a new belt here before too awful long. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of buildup, carbon buildup, it looks like, around the throttle body, which it's really not going to matter here in about a couple of weeks or so, because we're going to get ready to change out that throttle body and that intake manifold. So, oh yeah. So the next thing we're going to do is take our factory mass airflow sensor, move it over here, and put it on the new intake. And also, we're not going to be reusing these old screws. We actually have a new set of Torx screws that comes in the kit, and we're going to get those traded off and installed, so hold tight. Now that you've got it loosened, you can just simply pull it out, be easy, be gentle with it, make sure nothing's catching, and you're good to go. So now that we've got the mass airflow sensor taken out of the old airbox, we're ready to transfer it to the new airbox. So all you should really need to do is slide it on in, and it should only go one way because the bolt pattern will only allow you to go one way. And we're just going ahead right here. And as said, they do supply new Torx screws. Now the old ones are actually T15 Torx screws. These will be T20s. Just to let you know, there was going to be a small size difference, so just keep that in mind. It's probably a good idea to try and start some of these things by hand if you can. If not, be very gentle when you go on ahead to try and put these in, because you don't want to screw them up. We're going to add our coupler to this, and it should just slide right over. If the worst case comes to it, we'll loosen this up just a little bit, just so we can get some room in here, and this should just slide right. If not, you may need to use a set of pliers to help you out, but you may not. There we go. Also, don't forget, if you are running the 5.3, you will need this coupler right here that has a hump in it, or you will need this coupler for your 6.2, as it has a reducer fitting for the larger throttle body. Alright guys, so to button everything up, we're just going to slide everything in. Going to put this into the intake tube side, or the filter side that is, rather. Get that slid in, get this in position, and slide it over the throttle. Alright guys, so the next step, after you finally got the intake tube in, we're going to go on ahead and tighten all the hardware down and make sure that everything is straight and aligned, and then we'll move on to the next step. So now that we've got the intake all tightened into place, it's not going anywhere, it feels pretty sturdy, we can go on ahead and take our hoses here and slide them onto the tube part right here, which will connect to there, Same thing over here, this connect over to there. Now you want to make sure to press them on pretty tight, make sure at least against the bead. If that is not secure enough for you, you are more than welcome to use band clamps, or if you really want to get creative and you don't care about using these, you can actually cut this off and use one end on this hose to reconnect to your factory fittings. Now unfortunately they won't fit into these parts right here, as I've already tried. Unfortunately, no go. But that's another idea. If you guys want to give that a try, you're more than welcome to, which I may end up doing that here at some point. Just don't know yet. For the record, the shortest one will go right here. And we will twist it on over, push it against this other one. Alright, and then the last thing to do is plug in your mass airflow sensor, make sure that's connected, double check all your connections, make sure they're all pressed up against like that. As you can see, it's flared there, and you can see it's on the tapered end, same with over there. Over there, I think we're ready to check this thing out. Also, one other thing, now you're ready to go. Alright guys, moment of truth. Alright, as the truck warms up here, it's starting to idle down now, as you can see and hear. So far I see no check engine lights. There's a little bit of heat in it, but as soon as it idles down here, we'll give her a rev. Alright guys, so we are now back in the truck. Everything is all buttoned up underneath the hood, and everything is cleaned up off the porch, because you know that's just as much important as anything else. So now, with all that said, everything has been checked over. We are going to go on ahead and take a test drive, and this is actually the initial test drive of the truck with the cold air intake. I did not take a test drive at all before, and you guys are along for the ride, so let's just see how well this works out. Let's do a 40 roll. Kind of what I'm noticing as far as overall, if I'm feeling anything as far as a butt dyno, kind of slammed me back a tiny bit more than I normally am used to, or that I can normally remember, but maybe that's also just a false sense here. But I mean, other than that, as far as I can tell, definitely in the sound department, it's much more throatier coming from the front of the engine, and I can kind of hear it in the exhaust note as well. So not sure if that's maybe also another thing that's ear related, but I do notice it has a slightly different sound to it as well. And I notice the top end has gotten a little bit better, so it's not like by very much, but it is a little bit better, that is for sure. So so far that's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with it. So let's just see how well this truck does. We'll see what we can hear. I have to say, not bad. Although, as far as butt dyno goes, it's still kind of hard to tell. But I think once we do the tune on it, I think we'll definitely see some gains. We'll definitely feel something in the butt-o-meter, that is, the butt dyno. And with that said, that wraps up the installation of the AFE Momentum GT Pro Dry S cold air intake for the 2014 and up Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra. So if you guys loved this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, because I really do appreciate it. Also, if this is your first time stopping into this channel, please hit that subscribe button. It also means the world to me. Also, do not forget about that little notification bell next to the subscribe button. If you're going to subscribe, make sure to hit that as well, so that you are always notified when I post new videos, because nobody likes being left out in the dark. and when I'm getting ready to do a tune and a bunch of other stuff to this truck, you don't want to miss that. So make sure to go on ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you are not left out in the dark, because I don't even like being left out in the dark. But with all that said, guys, hopefully you have a fantastic day and take it easy.